I've been with my girlfriend Jordan for a little over 2 years. We live together, and we have 2 cats. Up until this weekend, I genuinely thought everything was perfect in our relationship, which I know is what everyone says in these posts, but I really was thinking that I was going to ask her to marry me sometime in the next year. We don't ever get into arguments. Jordan is very sweet and easygoing, and normally we just mesh well on everything. Honestly, if everything in our relationship hadn't been so good up until now, I probably would have just broken up with her this weekend. But because things have truly been so perfect, I'm not sure if maybe I'm jumping to the wrong conclusion about what to do because my feelings got hurt. The other person who's important in this story is Jordan's friend Mark. She's known Mark for their whole lives because they both grew up in the same small religious community. Jordan isn't part of that religion anymore. She decided to leave the church when she was, I think, 19 and moved to the state that we live in now. Mark still is in the religion and apparently takes it really seriously. I'm told he now works for the church back in Jordan's hometown. Also, as far as I know, Mark is the only person from the religious community that Jordan still talks to besides her parents, which I'm mentioning because I now think it could be a red flag. So on Saturday, I met Mark for the first time because he was in our city and Jordan wanted us all to have dinner together. At this point, I want to say, I will admit that when we were first dating and I found out that Jordan had a best friend who was a guy, I didn't really like it. Especially because it seemed like they were on FaceTime with each other a lot. But since it was a childhood friend and they mostly didn't see each other in person, I just trusted Jordan that Mark was only a friend and didn't let it bother me, and eventually I got over it. So when we were going to dinner, I wasn't jealous or suspicious of Mark at all. If anything, I was somewhat excited to finally be meeting him since I've been hearing about him for 2 years. But then the way Jordan and Mark acted at dinner is what convinced me that there's something going on there other than just being best friends. I honestly don't even know how to describe it, except to say that I've never seen two people act more obviously like they were in love with each other. They literally would not stop touching each other. They were constantly touching each other's arms and shoulders, and at some points, they were actually even holding hands. They completely left me out of the conversation and were laughing about inside jokes. And every time they'd laugh, they'd do this thing where they put their foreheads together, or that was when they'd be holding hands. And then also they were just looking at each other in a way that I didn't feel comfortable with at all. It was honestly even worse than the touching. It just wasn't how anyone would look at somebody they're supposedly just friends with. I'm 100% sure that every stranger looking at our table thought that Jordan and Mark were the couple and that I was her brother or something. I felt like a third wheel the whole time, and Jordan didn't even notice how awkward she was making it for me because she was way too focused on Mark and all the attention she was getting from him. And that's really not like Jordan at all. Usually she's a lot more considerate and would notice immediately if I wasn't having a good time or if she was accidentally being rude and excluding someone at the table. So it was genuinely really jarring to be sitting there with her and Mark and basically feeling like I didn't know my girlfriend at all. It was like he turned her into a completely different person who didn't even care that I was alive. So finally, at one point when Jordan got up to go to the bathroom, I just said to Mark, "So, are you into my girl? Or what's going on here?" "Nothing's going on at all. That ship sailed a long time ago." "What does that mean? Did you guys date at some point?" "No, we never did." And then when she left the church, we both knew it meant that we were never going to. And we've accepted being in each other's lives as friends. There's nothing else going on at all. That makes it sound like the only reason you're not together is because she left the church. And all Mark did was shrug. "Well, what if she came back to the church? Would you marry her?" "Oh, she's not going to do that. You might as well ask what would happen if a bicycle had 6 tires." And so then when Jordan came back to the table, Mark said to her, "OP wants to know if we'd be married if you weren't a godless heathen." "Why? Did you two call your mom while I was gone?" And then she and Mark both just laughed about it and changed the subject. So because of dinner and that conversation and everything else that I've written about in this post, I really feel like Jordan and Mark are in love with each other and not just best friends, like they say. And the only reason they aren't together is because they can't compromise about their religion. I think Jordan thinks that because she's okay with that decision, she expects me to be okay with being her second choice, and in the meantime, she's actually secretly wanting to be with Mark. So that makes me think that I should probably obviously just have self-respect and break up with her, because I shouldn't be in a relationship with someone who would rather be with somebody else. But then, the problem for me is that our relationship has been so perfect, and Jordan has always treated me so well, except for this one night. The only time she's ever acted like this was on the one occasion that Mark was around in person. Normally, even when she's talking to him all the time, she's never made me feel this way. So, on the one hand, I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't matter what Jordan's feelings are for Mark. As long as he isn't going to be around, it doesn't actually seem to affect our relationship. So maybe I just need to cool off and go back to trusting her that they are indeed only friends, even if it seems to be true that they have complicated feelings for each other. Or should I just end things? Now, for a few important comments. Commenter, what did Jordan say about all this when you two got home and had a private discussion? OP, we didn't talk about it again. I've just been trying to weigh things out on my own for the last few days. I wasn't sure how I should try to talk to her about it, or if that was the best idea. Another commenter, the only way forward at this point is to talk to your girlfriend. You need to sit down with her and have a frank discussion about the events of the night and what made you uncomfortable. How she responds to your concerns will tell you almost everything you need to know. The main thing I would be concerned about when starting the conversation is that your girlfriend seems like she might be quick to brush off any of your concerns without hearing them out. If she does that, you need to push back. Make it clear that you need to be heard on this issue and that she needs to take you seriously here. I talked to Jordan on Wednesday night. I didn't break up with her. After we talked about everything, I feel like that would be too much of an overreaction for what's actually going on. I do still think I was right to be upset about what I saw happening at dinner on Saturday, and Jordan didn't disagree with me about that. But I think I did jump to the wrong conclusion, that it meant that she secretly actually wanted to be with Mark more than she wants to be with me. Now that we've talked it out, I don't think there's a reason to end what's otherwise the best relationship I've ever had. And I'm glad that I didn't just immediately trust my instincts, because there was more going on with the situation that I didn't really understand that Jordan has since told me. I do feel like she can be given some grace in this situation, assuming nothing like this ever happens again. So thanks for the advice, especially for everyone who told me to just talk to her before I made a big decision. So when we talked, I decided to take the main piece of advice that I got from everyone and start by telling Jordan that my feelings were hurt by the way she treated me at dinner with Mark, and then see how the conversation went from there. It turned into a very long talk, so I don't want to try to remember exact quotes and get them wrong, but here are the important things. I repeated to Jordan some of what I wrote in the post and said that I felt excluded by her and Mark, especially because they were being overly touchy-feely with each other to the point where it made me uncomfortable. Jordan seemed surprised, like she didn't even notice that she and Mark were touching each other that much. But then she thought about it and said that I was right and apologized. She said that Mark is always really touchy with everybody and not just her, I asked. And so she didn't even think about it, but that she wished I would have said something at the time because she didn't realize they were being that obnoxious. Now for a few comments. AllieCat222 said, I may get some hate for this, but I am a F whose best friend is a guy, and I don't even do more than give him a quick hug before we part after hanging out. That may just be me, but I couldn't imagine holding hands and touching foreheads together, especially if my SO was there if I had one. How does growing up with someone equate to needing to hold hands, touching forearms, etc.? To me, that comes off as disrespectful. Now, having said that though, I do believe the best thing to do is talk to her. Ignoring it won't get you anywhere. And I will admit that the way I may view things doesn't mean that's the way she viewed it, nor necessarily was trying to be flirtatious either. The only way to work through things in a relationship is letting your partner know how you feel in situations. If you don't discuss things that you may be feeling uncomfortable with, you won't have a good continual foundation for your relationship otherwise. I wish you all the best and hope you can work things out. Then another commenter, Rizwar, said, touching foreheads and holding hands. I mean, the rest of it is over the line, but maybe excusable in some way. But this, I don't know how you didn't say something when it happened. It just seems so bizarre to me for friends to do that. There has to be something more. It just doesn't make any sense otherwise, no matter how you try and view it. Maybe they think of each other as the one that got away? Maybe some kind of tragic Romeo and Juliet, right person, wrong circumstances kind of thing? What I really think is that at the least, this will happen every time Mark makes an appearance in your lives, and at worst, you'll always be second to him, whether he's there or not. Aliando Alice commented, my jaw dropped when I read that for real. Nora Ray J added, same, I could not imagine being OP in that moment. It would make me cry if my partner did that to me. Then Sidri said, she obviously carrying a torch that will never go out. If knowing your runner-up is something you can live with, give it a shot, but 2 years isn't long, and there's a lot of years left. If something changes later and an opportunity opens up, she'd go running. I responded, that's the big thing that scares me, because I do think that I could maybe live with the fact that there was someone else before me, and the day goes, she eventually did choose me over him. But then I think about what could happen if Mark decided that he was ever going to leave the church like Jordan did, which doesn't seem like it's going to happen from the way they both talk about it. But then I know that I'm a different person now at 29 than I was when I was 26, so it's not impossible for him to change his mind. And then, if that really was the only reason that Jordan was with me, of course she'd leave to go be with him, like what she always wanted. I said that was part of what bothered me, because I thought that normally she would have noticed something like that, but she was acting so different around Mark, and not paying any attention to anything else, including how I was feeling, that it was honestly just made me question which one of us she cared about more, or if she cared about him as more than just a friend. Jordan apologized more and said that she could understand why it would look that way to me, but that she loves me and cares more about me than anyone else in the world, and that she didn't mean to act like that or make me feel that way. She said that she was trying to not make Mark feel like a third wheel because of being a single guy out with a couple, but obviously it backfired and just made me feel like the third wheel instead, which wasn't what she wanted to do either. After that, Jordan explained a lot to me about her history with Mark, and basically, as she explained it, she said that she fully admits she cares about him as more than just a normal friend, but she says that it's not in a romantic way. She said that's why she always specifically refers to him as her best friend, and not just as her friend, and said that she would use the phrase, he's like my brother, if it weren't for the fact that she once had an actual brother. RIP. So she won't use that phrasing for anyone else. According to Jordan, the main thing that happened to make her and Mark so close was that when she was 17, she tried to unalive herself. And that was actually when everyone else in the community stopped talking to her, and Mark was the only person who didn't. For the next couple of years, until she moved, he was literally her only friend, and she said that he checked on her every single day to make sure she stayed alive, which is also when they got into the habit of talking on the phone so much. And also, apparently during this time, Mark's parents thought they were dating and made a big deal about how they shouldn't be, and that's why she made that remark during dinner. Apparently calling Jordan a godless heathen is something that Mark's mom said. I did tell Jordan that Mark basically said to me that he thought the two of them would be married if she had stayed in the church, and I asked her if she thinks that maybe Mark is in love with her, even if she doesn't feel the same way. She said definitely not, and I don't think she was being dishonest. I really don't agree with her, but I think she genuinely believes that Mark isn't into her in any way apart from friendship. Her opinion of the situation is that she also thinks she and Mark would eventually have gotten married if she had never left the church or moved. But from her perspective, it would have been more because of peer pressure than anything else, and she doesn't think it would necessarily have been a good thing. She thinks Mark was just being honest about that. And that possibly, from his perspective, he thinks he and Jordan would have made a good couple, but he's probably thinking that because he's just assuming that in that scenario, she'd be the perfect church wife, so there's no reason why they wouldn't be a good couple. But then, the big thing that happened at the end of the conversation is that Jordan told me that Mark is coming back through our city on his way home from this trip, and so she was going to invite him to hang out with the two of us again. But she said that if I'm going to be uncomfortable with him around, then she won't ask him. A lot of people were saying that if she didn't offer to cut contact with him or to cut down on contact with him, it meant that she valued him over me. So the fact that she brought up on her own that she wouldn't invite him to dinner with us again because I didn't like it seemed like a really good sign to me. Based on everything else that she said, I do understand why she didn't offer to totally stop being friends with him, and I wouldn't expect her to after what she told me about what happened when she was a teenager. So now I'm deciding to take Jordan's word for it, that although she and Mark are weirdly close, it's for the reasons that she explained to me, and not because she's in love with him. I think the fact that she was immediately apologetic instead of defensive was good, and the way she explained everything did make sense to me. I don't necessarily trust Mark, but I do think I can trust Jordan. But I am going to watch and see if it seems like she's still talking to him as much as she used to, or if anything changes or sounds different. I'm not going to be controlling and tell her that she can't talk to him or that she has to talk to him less, but I want to see if me talking to her about all of this causes her to act any differently at all. I'm kind of thinking she might realize on her own that the way Mark acts towards her actually does seem like he likes her as more than a friend now that I've brought it up, but I don't know. It could be that things just go back to exactly the way they were before, and I won't know if anything has actually changed until the next time Mark is around in person, but I don't think that's something I should keep worrying about before it happens. Now for a few important comments. A commenter said, "Holding hands with your opposite intimacy friend and pushing your foreheads together in front of your monogamous partner is wild, but you do you, homie." Another commenter added, "Well, Reddit, congratulations, we definitely accomplished nothing here." Then another commenter said, "OP, did she acknowledge that the touching by her was inappropriate? I do not see how she could not have recognized how touchy they were and her lack of physical touch with you." Like many others have said, I am not sure Jordan was being completely honest with you. Did you ask her how she would have felt in a reverse situation? If the three of you meet again, you might want to think about excusing yourself to go to the bathroom or something during the meal, and instead hide and film their interaction while you are gone. See if Jordan changes how she interacts when you are not there. I say to capture it on your phone because then you have it to show her if you break up. If she interacts appropriately while you are gone, then she may have gotten the message. She should also start limiting her interactions with him, phone/text, because that relationship is not healthy and no SO should have to deal with that if you two get married. It needs to be dealt with now. OP replied, "She did acknowledge that all the touching was inappropriate. Yes, when she actually thought back on how much they were doing it and how over the top it was, she was embarrassed and realized she shouldn't have started acting like that just because Mark makes it seem normal. I didn't ask her how she'd feel in the reverse situation because it seemed like she got it immediately as soon as I told her how it made me feel." Another commenter said, "I am glad you spoke up, and I am glad you received some clarity on the situation. Unfortunately, I think your girlfriend is lying. The problem is that she is not really lying to you. I mean, she is, but really, she's lying to herself. If she is talking to this guy every day and not even realizing how physical she got with him when they met up after being physically separated for so long, she has been lying to herself for so long that the lies to you were just shrapnel from the nuclear lies she keeps telling herself. Obviously, they aren't a compatible couple long-term with their core beliefs being so different, but they have fed their emotional bond for so long that their connection is intense. Dude, she didn't even realize she was physically wrapped into this man with her long-term boyfriend right next to her. That speaks volumes. I have been coaching individuals in the infidelity realm long enough to have seen this same story play out 1,000 times now. I pray I am wrong for your sake, but I fear if she doesn't entirely cut off Mark, you'll be either here or in our surviving infidelity in the next 2 years with a shocked Pikachu face on saying, "Just found out my fiance has been cheating with her best friend Mark." I say that and I know it comes out a little snarky, but in all honesty, my heart breaks saying it. Having been through betrayal like that personally, I'd gladly sacrifice many things in my own life to help prevent others from experiencing that same pain. So even if you believe your girlfriend, hold on to a shred of doubt and wonder if the experts might have some wisdom to offer your situation. As I saw someone else mention, the book Not Just Friends by Shirley Glass would be amazingly on point for your situation and might lead you towards some growth here. No matter what you choose, I pray you find peace and joy. Good luck. If the three of us are ever together again, I'll definitely be watching everything, but I don't think there's a chance of that happening for a while. I can admit there's a possibility that Jordan is just wrong about how she feels. After our talk, I do honestly think that's more likely than that she's trying to be dishonest or is gaslighting me. If that turns out to be the case, then that's going to have to be the end of the relationship. But I'm deciding to at least give her a chance here. Now for a few comments. A lot of what you detail still sounds weird, especially the part where she didn't want to make Mark feel left out because he was visiting with a couple, him being a single man. Mark in no way visited with a couple. If Jordan is so empathetic re this issue, she sure missed showing any empathy for you. I don't think you will experience much difference with the next encounter with all three of you. You're very enthusiastic to give Jordan a pass. This will continue to haunt you. You don't seem to think you deserve to have this made right. Jordan has a very wide berth. I wish you the best. You just seem to feel you deserve so little. It's so sad. I do agree with you that it still sounds weird, but with more context, I'm just more comfortable with it. Don't get me wrong, I still didn't appreciate being treated like a third wheel at dinner, and I still thought that Mark and Jordan were too handsy with each other, just in general, and I'm not okay with that continuing. But if she's being honest with me that it's not because of romantic feelings, which I think she is, then I think as long as she's willing to have boundaries from now on, after understanding that it made me uncomfortable, I don't think it's as much as a red flag as I thought before. Now, for a lengthy comment, OP is asked to consider whether it's not a matter of Jordan being believable, but that he wants to believe her so strongly that he is subconsciously subverting his standards for judgment. That's a really well thought out comment, and I appreciate you taking the time to write it. And I absolutely do understand why everyone thinks I'm just letting Jordan gaslight me. Honestly, I'd probably think the same thing if someone else was telling me this story, so I can't really blame everyone. But I truly don't think I'm just being steered by wanting to believe her. It's hard to convey everything that happened when we talked into one post, but I'm just very sure that she was being genuine, and it was that convinced me that I could believe that she was saying. It wasn't that I just stopped being objective, because that was the easier thing to do. Honestly, I think it would have been easier to keep assuming that what I thought in the first place was true, because honestly, it's easier for me to understand. I do think that Jordan's attachment to Mark is weird and probably unhealthy. And even if she doesn't think so, I think there's more than just friendship going on from his side of things. But I think Jordan is being honest that she's not in love with him and that she wants to be with me and not him. And that was the thing that was making me question the relationship. The other stuff that I do still take issue with, I think can be worked out as long as Jordan takes seriously that she can't be acting in a way with Mark that disrespects me and our relationship, even if in her head it's not in a romantic way. And from the way our talk went, I think I can trust her to do so. Now for the 2.5 months update. The situation seems pretty resolved now, after Mike and Jordan had an argument over everything and are no longer friends. What happened was that after Jordan told Mark we weren't available to hang out when he came back through our city, he blamed me, saying that he could tell Jordan was only saying no to hanging out because I had a problem with him. Jordan admitted that this was part of the reason and told Mark that she wanted a bit of space from him because she was trying to be respectful of our relationship. Mark got really offended and kept asking Jordan to explain why him being around was disrespectful to our relationship and kept pretending not to understand her answers. And then eventually, during the conversation, he started trying to guilt Jordan into making time for him and told her that she's become a worse person over the years because the Jordan he knew would never blow him off. That upset Jordan a lot because she took it as Mark saying that she was a bad person since she left the church, and she started crying and she ended up hanging up on him. Jordan and I talked a lot afterwards. I told her that I thought Mark was toxic because anyone else would have been understanding of what she said. Jordan said that a lot of what he said during the conversation reminded her of being in the church. She said that she couldn't explain it, except that it was his attitude when he tried to argue with her, but that it made her not really want to talk to him even outside of anything to do with our relationship. Mark texted Jordan the day after asking if she really wasn't going to come see him and if she was going to pick some boyfriend over her only friend after he's been there for her through everything. Jordan texted Mark back explaining her point again and saying that their friendship couldn't be the same anymore as it used to be now that she was with someone and that he should understand that. Mark texted Jordan that he couldn't believe she'd treat her best friend like that. Jordan tried to text Mark saying that a friend wouldn't be guilt-tripping her, but it turned out that he had blocked her number. After that, Jordan was feeling like she'd done something wrong and was too mean to Mark, but she and I talked about it again, and she realized that she was right to not want to be friends with Mark if he's going to treat her like she owes him loyalty. Jordan then blocked him back, including on all her socials, so that if later he changes his mind and tries to apologize, she can ignore him. A couple of weeks went by, and while I'll admit I was pretty happy about not hearing from Mark, Jordan was really bummed about how everything ended. She said that although she saw now that Mark isn't a good person to have in her life, because of his reaction to her trying to set a boundary, she still felt sad and abandoned, and it was bringing back a lot of the same feelings as when she was a teenager, and her other church friends all turned their backs on her. So at this point, I asked her if she's ever thought about going to therapy for religious trauma, and she said she'd gone for a few months when she first left the church, but the therapist wasn't really helpful. I suggested that maybe it would be a good idea to try again with a better therapist, because it sounds like all this stuff still bothers her a lot, and Jordan agreed with me and decided to make an appointment. She's had a couple of therapy sessions that she says so far are good, but I don't really ask her for any details on what they talk about, so I can't really update on that part of the situation. Now for a few comments. Mark sounds toxic at this point. He sounded iffy before, honestly, with the way he was so positive he would have been with Jordan, but this is not the way you treat someone who is supposed to be a friend. He wants to be her number one friend. Then he should try actually being a friend and listening. I assume he isn't, because in his religion, the man is supposed to speak and the woman is supposed to listen. Yes, tell Jordan to try a different therapist. If the therapist isn't working for her, that just means she has the wrong therapist. She can find a good one, and I really hope she does. Another commenter said, I've been reading these posts since it first came out, and it sucks that it had to turn out this way, but I think it's for the better, especially the part of her going back to therapy, too. Does she have other new friends not related to the church that she can rely on, too? Her having her own support system that is separate from you and Mark could also help her. Anyways, wishing you all the best. Jordan seems like a very lovely girl, and I'm glad you both are going strong outside of the trauma. Then OP replied, she does. We have a few couples that we're pretty close friends with, and she also has a bunch of friends from her work who I know she talks to about problems and all that stuff. Am I the idiot for cutting off my family after my sister called my daughters rap babies? I have twin girls, 6 years old. I love them more than anything and am grateful for them, but I wish I had gotten pregnant differently. Long story short, I was sexually attacked by a relative when I was 19. It was a terrible experience, and I tried to forget about it, but I kept the babies. Unfortunately, I didn't really get a choice to have them in the first place, as when I found out I was in my second trimester. Not that I would have gotten rid of them because they are my everything. Anyways, on to the issue. My parents usually babysit the girls after school while I'm at work, usually for about an hour or so. I also haven't been in contact with my sister since I was pregnant, as she told me I clearly wanted it. She's obviously not a good person, so I keep her out of mine and my daughter's lives as much as I can. The girls are doing a fun family tree project at the moment, and I told them that their dad did something very bad and was taken away a long time ago. I never went into detail. I didn't want to go into detail or keep them in the dark. They both were happy with my response and didn't even push me on it. I obviously was going to tell them when they were adults so they could really understand what happened and why he is in jail and not in their lives. As I mentioned, I don't talk to my sister, so my mom had the bright idea that while she was babysitting, she would invite my sister to see the girls since she hasn't seen them ever. While my dad went out, my sister told the girls they looked just like their dad. The girls told her, "No, we look like Mum." And my sister told the girls, "No, you look like your dad." The girls then asked, "How do you know our dad? Have you seen him?" And my sister told them, "Yeah, I've of course seen him, but you should know that you are rap babies." When I came to pick up my daughters, they were calling each other our babies. I asked my mom where they had gotten that name because I was livid, and she told me she had no idea. So in front of my mom, I asked the girls where they learned that from, and they told me, "Auntie's sister's name told us that's what we are." I just stared at my mom in disbelief, grabbed the girls, and went home. When we got home, I told them that that was a very bad word and that they should never say that ever. It was a very uncomfortable situation for me. They asked me a lot of questions about where it came from and what it means, and I answered as child-friendly as I could and put them to bed. Once they were asleep, I messaged my mom saying that I will never trust her again and that she should have embraced today because this is the last time she'll ever see my children. And that goes for the rest of the family. My mom started messaging me full of excuses and everything, and I decided to just take the easy way, block them, and carry on. However, now I'm getting messages from my dad and my sister and mom, all telling me that the girls were going to know one day, and my sister was just ripping the Band-Aid off them. I, on the other hand, completely disagree and think they are 6 years old and don't need to hear anything vile like that. My sister didn't explain anything to them. It was completely inappropriate and out of line, as they are children. I told some friends, and they're telling me that although my sister went the wrong way about it, she didn't do the wrong thing. With everyone telling me I'm in the wrong, I'm just confused. So, am I the jerk? Just some extra information. This happened on Friday last week, and I told my friends over the weekend. Now for some comments. B-Baby-Doll Saswi said, NTA, you are not the jerk for protecting your children from the harmful truth about their conception at such a young age. Your sister's actions were cruel and inappropriate, and you are justified in your anger and decision to distance your family from your children. Too Lazy to Create said, NTA, it wasn't important for your children to learn about all this, and your sister had no business telling them about all this. You had given a very good explanation as to what happened to their dad. It's clear your sister is trying to belittle your children. I think the reason why your family is trying to make you the AH is because they might think of the man who essayed you as innocent. So I think it's best to stay away from them, especially your sister. When OP was asked if the family thought the man who attacked her was innocent, she said, "It was my mom's brother. They didn't believe me at all when it happened. So when I went to the police and the court summoned a DNA test, they still were on the fence about it. It wasn't until he was found guilty that some of my family believed me. The rest don't bring it up as it's too much drama to get into." Too Lazy to Create replied, "Your family didn't believe you and didn't apologize after. That's enough to no longer trust them." Now for the one-day update. Firstly, I wanted to thank everyone for proving I'm not crazy. I have read the majority of the comments and DMs that I have received. Sorry, I just wanted to clear up a few things, and I'm going to be copying and pasting the messages I've received after I explain. Regarding my dad, I understand that a lot of you are saying I shouldn't cut him off, but he was aware that my mom invited my sister over, and he went to the shops when it happened, so he wasn't that innocent. He knew fully well that I wasn't talking to my sister and was on board to invite her over and let her meet my twins. I rounded up my twins' age. They are 5 and are turning 6 soon, and I am 25 at the end of the year, so I hope that clears the ages up. The twins' biological father is my mom's brother. He has been inappropriate with me since I was 12. My family completely just ignored any time I tried to speak up. My sister is 11 years older than me. She absolutely had no relationship with my mom's brother. She didn't even meet him until my court case because he lived in another country, and when he moved to my neighborhood, my sister was well living independently and never came to any family events. Now for my sister's messages. My sister said, "You're being so dramatic over the entire thing. I'm allowed to say the truth, and if anything, you should be thanking me, not bashing me to our family. I'll pray for the girls because you, as their mother, have no sense of responsibility to those girls. Always full of shoot. You're clearly trying to project your issues onto me. I don't have time for it." I replied, "You are the most vile person to date. I cannot fathom how you thought it was okay to tell my daughters that they are our babies. I think you need to go have a mental health evaluation because you need help. And don't you ever mention how I am as a mother when you don't even have kids. I hope you get the help you need." My sister responded, "How dare you throw my fertility in my face? You have no idea what it's like to have genuinely awful happen to you. You're a selfish witch. Frick you. You're an intimacy lover. I don't need a freaking intimacy lover who started to frick her own uncle talking about my business. I'll pray to God for you, freaking witch." I replied, "God knows how disgusting you are and is preventing you from having any child because God in no way would willingly let you be anywhere near any children. Suck my weenie, you uneducated swine." My parents' messages sum up what I wrote in my last post and how I'm a disgusting daughter and sister for throwing my sister's issues in her face. I told my daughters that we can get a new house and I will paint their room any color of their choosing, and they are quite happy to move. I think it's because they want a bluey-themed room, but I'm not sure. I started looking at houses and hopefully we will be accepted soon. Thank you so much for all the support. I genuinely appreciate it. I will update if anything happens. I blocked my sister after that conversation. I'm also currently in the process of changing my work emails and stuff like that, as that's how they are contacting me still. When I found out I was pregnant, I was 24 weeks. That's why I had them. Not much I could do. Also, my sister cannot for the life of her spell, so she used speak-to-text when she's arguing, and we all know how Siri does not put what you say. Now for a few comments. First commenter said, "Well, your sister has an amazing ability to turn a dumpster fire into something even more disgusting." Then OP replied, "Yeah, and she will catch these hands if she goes anywhere near my daughters again. I'll tell you that much." Another commenter said, "I would have used, your womb is as poisoned as your personality, but I'm also evil that way." Another commenter added, "I am pretty certain that your sister decided to do this because she's envious of the fact that you have children at all, and she doesn't." What a despicable excuse for a human being she is, and your family is just as complicit. Good riddance. If you have the resources, I would see if you could get your children in with a pediatric psychologist for a few sessions at the very least. They may need help from a professional to truly understand why the word they were using was bad, and now that they know, they're going to grow up with that. I have a friend who was conceived the same way, and he heard the word from a family member via a very similar situation. And when he looked it up, he felt so much guilt that his birth meant his mom went through all that pain, and he started hating himself for it. It took years to fix that self-hatred. Then OP replied, "Yeah, absolutely. I am still on the search to find someone for the girls." Am I the idiot for refusing to get my daughter a service dog after she threw my sister-in-law's senior dog off the roof? All right, the title is long-winded, I know, but hear me out. My female 45, daughter, female 15, suffers from severe social anxiety. It is incredibly crippling and has prevented her from many extracurriculars and even her education over the years. I left my job 5 years ago to start homeschooling her and have since put her in therapy. The therapist and I have been working on getting her into school more and more for the past year and a half. This is all to say, I am not trying to shame my daughter for her social anxiety at all. It is a debilitating thing to live with, and I can see that firsthand. Last month, the therapist recommended getting a service dog for my daughter in order to be able to help her navigate public settings better. Despite thinking this was a huge responsibility, I did see the excitement on my daughter's face. She really wanted a dog and seemed determined to continue her progress with the help of an animal. I was initially on board with this and started the necessary research required. However, a few weeks ago, I left my daughter with my sister-in-law for a few days because my mother was sick and I needed to visit her a few hours away, and my husband was on a work trip. The plan was for my sister-in-law to continue her homeschooling for as many hours as she could manage, but instead, I got a call from her 2 days in demanding I take my daughter back home. I came to find out that my sister-in-law had to leave the house for a few hours and ask my daughter to take care of her senior dog. This dog is very old and small. She was adopted just over a year ago, so she's still a bit wary of people. My daughter, in an attempt to recreate some stupid online video, took this senior dog to the roof of the house and left her there. The poor thing was so scared she shoot herself on the roof, shaking, while my daughter filmed. Of course, this didn't go to plan, and the dog ended up falling off the roof and into the swimming pool out of sheer luck. However, due to her age and size, the dog ended up breaking a few ribs and her paw. When I heard this, I was absolutely livid. I confronted my daughter immediately, and she admitted to wanting to recreate a video she saw online. She then proceeded to use a defense that went along the lines of, "That dog is old. If it were younger, then nothing would have happened." She also mentioned how she didn't really think what she did was that bad, because it's an unloved shelter dog with no real value like a service dog or newborn puppy. I was very upset to hear these words coming out of my daughter's mouth. I have no idea where she learned this from, considering neither me nor my husband share these beliefs. I instantly told my daughter that she would not be getting a service dog. I also told her that she would have to pay her aunt's vet bill no matter what it took. Because the bill is in the thousands, she will have to find a way to make that money. My daughter got upset and said I was being unfair because she can't get a job due to her social anxiety. But I told her she should have thought about that before doing what she did. My daughter has since then been attempting to search for a part-time job that requires minimal face-to-face interaction. Despite me and my husband helping her, she was only able to find a waitress job. I asked my sister-in-law if she was okay with my daughter working the vet bill off instead, but she refused, saying she really had no interest in having my daughter anywhere near her house or dog again. And I honestly thought that was fair enough, so I told my daughter she had to find a way to stick with this because that vet bill was her responsibility only. My husband told me I might be an AH for suggesting our daughter pay off the entire bill and that we should probably just restrict her pocket money until the bill is paid off. I think that's not a good enough punishment because her pocket money isn't earned. It's what me and my husband give her for free time at the start of the week. Also, this bill is entirely her fault and therefore her responsibility. It's unfortunate that the only jobs available are in customer service. But what else can we do? My daughter's therapist also reached out saying she thinks it was wrong of me to completely take the service dog idea off the table, considering it is a medical necessity, as well as pointing out that suddenly forcing my daughter into an unfamiliar job may be a bit too daunting. Are my husband and my daughter's therapist right? Am I being too harsh on my daughter? Am I the idiot? Now for a few important comments. Pearls first. Despite what the therapist says, I'm not sure that a legitimate service animal organization would approve an animal for your daughter. Simple Carpet 9946. Kid has stayed home for 5 years with no social interaction with her peers other than stupid TikTok content. Time to take the phone. Sign the kid up for a league or art class or something. The therapist is taking in the dough and encouraging this. I swear some kids need good old immigrant parents like mine. 8 Skid 2005. As someone that's always had trouble making friends, my dogs were absolutely treasured. You mean there's this creature that will hang out with me with no expectations and it just needs to be fed and use the bathroom? But OP's kid is like, ha, let me terrify it for the likes. There is something so wrong and off about that. A 15-year-old should know better. This isn't a 5-year-old who maybe doesn't understand that being on a roof is dangerous. Chinia but that's the thing she said. It didn't matter because it was an unwanted shelter dog with no real value like a service dog or newborn puppy. It does show that she thinks about the value of things and what it will do for her instead of just being happy to have a creature that just exists to exist. Because that's the other sociopathic behavior she showed as well. It sounds like her one thought with the dog was, how can I use this thing to benefit me, which resulted in the dog on the roof. My oldest is 14 with low impulse control, and while he may do some dumb things, I don't have to worry about him putting other people in danger. Like if I have to run errands, I can trust that he can watch his much younger siblings, and everyone will be okay and alive within reason, and not on the flipping roof. Now for the 1-week update. Okay, first off, I would like to say that although I was warned Reddit was absolutely brutal, you guys did not hold back. Shout out to the person who DM'd me to tell me to unalive myself and my family. I would like everyone to know that I read almost every single comment, even if I didn't reply to all of them. Also to clarify, when I said a service animal, I was told that we would be able to get one to alert my daughter of panic attacks and help calm her down. However, after now speaking to other resources, we were explained that what the therapist was talking about was an ESA. Apologies for any confusion, this is new to me. And yes, where we live in America, psychologists can prescribe simple anxiety meds. And also yes, I obviously took away my daughter's phone and laptop after this. She's only allowed what she needs to complete her studies. On to the update. There was also a lot of helpful advice and support, so I do feel like I owe you guys an update. And my husband have been fighting for weeks now on how to handle this. We did end up taking her to a psychiatrist, and she was diagnosed severe social anxiety, as before, and also bipolar. We were told that the reason she wasn't diagnosed earlier is because she was far too young. And this is something that most likely only became visible very recently as she just hit puberty. So no, my daughter is not a sociopath. Sorry to disappoint. And yes, we were told to continue homeschooling, as it's too late to put her in a school where everyone has already developed their own friendship groups, etc. I once again had to leave to care for my sick mother, which left my daughter with my husband. Apparently, while I was gone, my husband thought it was a genius idea to turn up to sister-in-law's house and ask for my daughter to see the dog under supervision. My sister-in-law didn't agree but was coerced by my husband. This is what I'm assuming, because despite what my husband says, I don't believe she would have been on board with this. My daughter started crying and apologizing, claiming she felt so sad seeing the broken senior pup too scared to come close to her. My husband has since decided that in light of this, my daughter deserves her ESA. I completely disagree with this stance and believe that she needs more support, therapy, and a large range of resources not limited to an animal. Even if my daughter is genuinely sorry, this isn't a mistake that can be easily forgiven in a month. I still think we should be pushing her to continue a part-time job, something she's been beginning to do. She's been sent home from the restaurant a few times already for panic attacks and has even complained to vomiting during her breaks. I told her she's welcome to search for other jobs she might find easier, which she has started to do, although it's been almost 3 weeks of working, and I have asked her to do this a minimum of 2 months before quitting and finding something else. She's also not allowed to quit unless she comes to me with a different plan to pay the money back. My husband told me he has started the application process for an ESA. I was very angry and asked him to stop, but he argued that he thinks he should take over her care from now and quit his job while I worked instead. I disagree because I'm the one who has been handling it for 6 years, but apparently I don't truly understand just how sorry she is now. In light of this, I contacted my sister-in-law and told her that I think it would be best she file a police report. I do want this on record because, as many of you said, they won't give my daughter an animal if they find out about this. She agreed and did file a report, which was totally heartbreaking for me. It really hurts to have to do something like this to my daughter. My husband did find out, and we've now been arguing for days. He's incredibly angry, but I'm attempting to stick with this. I'm not sure how the next few weeks will pan out, but I will say that I'm incredibly worried for the future. I have no idea what to do or how to get my husband to see my side. This is very concerning, but thank you for listening, Reddit. And for those of you who gave advice and support, I really appreciate it. Now for a few comments. Common Fecking Sense said, "This is a hill I would die on. That girl does not deserve a dog, and you did the right thing telling sister-in-law to file that report. I know that's hard for you, but it was in fact the correct thing. Your husband is being a Disney dad, and in the long run, that's not going to help your daughter at all. Hopefully real-life consequences will show her how wrong exactly what she did is." Janet in Spain added, "Your husband is an idiot. Her being sorry is not enough to make up for what she did, and is no proof that she should be trusted around another animal, especially with a bipolar diagnosis. Good on you for pushing for a police report. This protects everyone, including any dog that might be subjected to your daughter. Tell your husband to stop with the daddy's girl dad mentality and look at this logically. She is not ready for a dog of her own. That would be completely inappropriate and illogical at this time. What did the psychiatrist say about an ESA? Maybe she should talk to your husband. I still say you need to pay your sister-in-law back. You are still punishing her. Your daughter can pay you back, so your sister-in-law doesn't have to wait forever." Then OP replied, "I still say you need to pay your sister-in-law back. You are still punishing her. Your daughter can pay you back, so your sister-in-law doesn't have to wait forever."